The huge meeting hall was full of strange sounds and bright lights. Kim Tae-ho stood in the center wearing his best blue uniform. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. All around him sat creatures from across the galaxy. Some looked like giant bugs, others were made of light itself. There were beings that floated in water tanks and others that spoke only through color. Changes. Kim Tae-ho had been coming to this place for 30 years. He knew every corner of the Galactic Council building. He had made friends with aliens whose names took 5 minutes to say properly. He had learned to eat food that would kill most humans and had somehow convinced warring species to share dinner tables instead of shooting at each other. Today felt different. The air was thick with tension. Even the translator machines seemed to hum with worry. Kim Tae-ho looked up at the viewing gallery where other human diplomats sat. His old friend Park Hyun-woo gave him a small nod. Lee Min-young looked worried, her usually calm face showing stress lines. The Vortani delegate stood up first. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. When Vortani got excited, their whole body would sparkle like diamonds. This one was sparkling a lot. We have gathered here today to discuss the human problem, said the Vortani. His voice came through the translators as cold and sharp. The humans have been in our council for 300 years. They came to us as a new species, asking for help and friendship. We welcomed them. Kim Tae-ho remembered those early days. His grandfather had been one of the first human ambassadors back when Earth barely had space travel. The aliens had seemed like gods then, with technology that could move mountains and ships that could cross galaxies in days. Humans had been grateful just to be allowed to watch and learn, but the humans did not stay quiet and grateful, continued the Vortani. They began to interfere in our affairs. They pushed their ideas on us. They made us change our ways of doing things. They have become too powerful, too influential. A low rumble went through the hall. Other aliens were making sounds of agreement. The Zephyrian ambassador, who looked like a giant bird, made clicking sounds with her beak. The Manthari delegate, who was basically a walking tree, rustled his leaves in what Kim Tae-ho knew meant approval. Kim Tae-ho wanted to laugh, but he kept his face calm. Humans too powerful. That was funny. Humans were still the youngest species in the council. They had the smallest territory, the weakest military, the least advanced technology, but somehow they had become the problem. The Thermal Alliance representative spoke next. His voice was like steam escaping from a hot pipe. The humans meddle in everything, they said. They stopped our war with the Ice Moon Federation just when we were about to win a glorious victory. They made us sign peace treaties. They made us share resources. They made us talk instead. A fight, yes, said another voice. This one belonged to the Aquatic Spheres delegate who lived in a mobile water tank. The humans interfere with our trade. They say our business practices are unfair. They make us follow their ethical standards. They have corrupted our pure way of commerce. Kim Tae-ho listened to complaint after complaint. The humans had stopped wars. The humans had prevented genocides. The humans had created fair trade agreements. The humans had established refugee programs. The humans had shared medical technology. The humans had helped settle disputes over resources. The humans had done exactly what good neighbors should do, but apparently being good neighbors was the problem. The vote was called. Speaker after speaker stood up to condemn humanity for their crimes of helpfulness. Kim Tae-ho was allowed to speak in defense of his species. He talked about the Manthari plague that human doctors had cured. He mentioned the Zephyrian colony ship that human engineers had saved from a black hole. He reminded them of the trade war between 17 species that human negotiators had resolved in just 3 days. None of it mattered. The decision had been made before the meeting even started. The final tally was announced. 847 votes to expel humanity from the Galactic Council, 1 vote against. The single vote against came from the Rigelian Collective, whose delegate was a good friend of Kim Tae-ho. But even they could not stand against the combined will of the rest of the galaxy. Kim Tae-ho stood quietly as the numbers were read. His daughter, Lee So-ra, was serving on a deep space exploration ship right now, working alongside Vortani engineers and Zephyrian scientists. She would have to come home. She would have to leave friends she considered family. All the humans would have to come home. The Vortani delegate seemed to expect anger or pleading. Instead, Kim Tae-ho simply nodded and began gathering his papers. Very well, he said, in a voice that carried clearly through the silent hall. If this is the will of the Galactic Council, then humanity accepts your decision. He paused and looked around the room at faces he had known for decades. Some looked guilty now that the deed was done. Others seemed relieved. The Manthari delegate, who had been saved from certain death by human medical intervention, would not meet his eyes. Since the council no longer requires human participation, said Kim Tae-ho, we will withdraw not just from this body but from all galactic affairs. We will return to our own systems and leave you to manage your own problems as you clearly prefer. Wait, said the Zephyrian ambassador suddenly, perhaps we could discuss terms of limited involvement. Kim Tae-ho shook his head. The vote was clear, he said. The galaxy has spoken. Humanity is no longer welcome in galactic affairs. We will respect that decision completely. He walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber behind him. Aliens began to whisper among themselves. Some were already having second thoughts. The thermal delegate was asking his aide about ongoing negotiations that human mediators were handling. The aquatic sphere's representative was calculating how much money they would lose without human trade expertise, but Kim Tae-ho did not look back. He had work to do. 12 billion humans were scattered across the galaxy, living on alien worlds, working in mixed crews, serving on joint projects. All of them would need to come home. All of them would need to be told that their life work was being abandoned because they had been too helpful. As he reached the exit, Kim Tae-ho turned back one last time. The hall was full of noise now as aliens argued about what they had just done. He saw fear in some faces, regret in others, but it was too late. The vote had been taken. The decision was final. Humanity was going home. Admiral Song Ji-woo sat in her command chair looking at the biggest collection of human ships ever assembled in one place. 3,000 vessels floated in space around the planet Nexus Prime. Each ship was packed with humans leaving their homes among the stars. Some had lived their entire lives on alien worlds. Some had alien spouses and children who now had to choose between staying with their families or following humanity home. The evacuation had been going on for 6 months. It was not rushed or angry. The humans did their work with quiet efficiency. They finished their projects. They trained their alien replacements. They said goodbye to friends they might never see again. Then they packed their belongings and boarded the ships, heading back to human space. Song Ji-woo watched the last transport ship dock with her flagship. The captain was Park Min-soo, a man she had known for 20 years. His face looked tired and sad. He had been commanding a joint defense fleet protecting 3 different species from space pirates. Now he was just another refugee heading home. How many more ships? She asked him. This is the last one from the outer rim sectors, he replied. But there are still humans coming from the core worlds. The research stations are taking longer to shut down. Some of the projects there have been running for 50 years. Song Ji-woo nodded. She understood the humans had not just been visitors in the galaxy. They had built lives, they had created families, they had started projects that would have benefited everyone. Now all of that was being abandoned because the aliens wanted them gone on the planet below. Dr. Choi Yun, he was packing up her laboratory. She had been working on a cure for a genetic disease that affected the Zephyrian species. The research was 90% complete. Another few months and thousands of Zephyrian children would have been saved instead. She was loading her equipment onto cargo ships and erasing her computer files. Her alien assistant Velkara stood watching with tears in her large eyes. You cannot leave now, she said. The children need this cure. My own nephew is sick. Dr. Choi Yun, he felt her heart breaking, but she had her orders. All human research projects were to be terminated. All human personnel were to return home, no exceptions. I am sorry, she said. I wanted to finish this. I wanted to help, but your people have made it clear they do not want our help anymore. But the council does not speak for all of U.S. Velkara protested. Many of us value what humans have done. We do not want you to leave. It does not matter what some of you once said. Dr. Choi Yun, the vote was clear. Your government wants us gone, so we are leaving. Across the galaxy similar scenes were playing out. Engineer Nam Hoseok was shutting down the hyperspace communication network he had designed. The network allowed instant communication between distant stars. Without it, the galaxy would go back to messages that took months or years to travel between worlds. But the aliens had voted him out, so the network would go dark. Negotiator Yoon Dae-yoon was in the middle of peace talks between the Manthari Collective and the Thermal Alliance. The two species had been fighting Over mining rights for 10 years, she had finally gotten them to agree on a solution that would benefit both sides, but now she had to leave. The talks would collapse without her. The war would probably start again. Captain Lee So-ra was the hardest case. She was serving on an exploration ship with a mixed crew of humans and aliens. They had been together for 5 years exploring the unknown regions of space. They had saved each other lives. They had become a family. Now she had to abandon them. Her second in command was Keltar of Vortani, who had served with humans for most of his career. He begged her to stay. "You are my friend," he said, "my best friend. We have been through everything together. How can you just leave?" Lee So-ra wanted to cry, but she kept her voice steady. "It was not my choice," she said. "Your people voted us out. They made it clear we are not welcome. If I stay, I will be here illegally. I could be arrested or worse, but this is not fair," said Keltar. "We worked together. We explored together. We are a team. Teams require trust," she replied. "Your species just voted that they do not trust humans. How can we continue working together after the withdrawal was complete and total? The humans took only what belonged to them. They left behind buildings. They had constructed roads. They had built schools. They had established medical clinics. They had staffed research stations. They had funded everything that could benefit the aliens was left behind, but they also took their knowledge." Dr. Choi Yun, he took her research on genetic diseases. Engineer Nam Hoseok took the plans for advanced communication systems. Negotiator Yoon Da-yoon took her understanding of alien psychology and diplomacy. Captain Lee So-ra took her maps of unexplored space and her knowledge of navigation through dangerous regions. The aliens did not realize what they were losing until it was too late. On the planet Therma, the Thermal Alliance tried to restart their mining operation without human safety protocols. 3 workers died in the first week because they did not understand the equipment the humans had left behind on Zephyr Prime. The government tried to continue the genetic research without Dr. Choi Yun-hee. Their first experiment created a virus that made the disease worse instead of better. The hyperspace communication network began failing within days of Nam Hoseok's departure. The alien technicians could maintain the hardware, but they did not understand the software. The network that had connected the galaxy began to break down message by message, relay by relay. Trade disputes that had been settled for years began flaring up again without human mediators. The aquatic spheres accused the Manthari collective of cheating on metal prices. The Manthari accused the spheres of dumping toxic waste without human investigators to check the facts. Both sides just assumed the worst. Admiral Song Ji-woo watched it all from her flagship as the human fleet slowly made its way back to Earth. The alien news networks were full of stories about systems failing and conflicts starting. Her communication officer, Captain Bae Sujin, brought her reports every day. "The Zephyrians are asking us to come back," she said. "They want Dr. Choi Yun-hee to finish her research. They are offering to pay triple her salary." Song Ji-woo shook her head. "The council voted us out. We are respecting their decision." "What about the Thermal Alliance?" "They want Engineer Nam Hoseok to fix their communication network. They say they will give him his own research facility." "Same answer," said Song Ji-woo. "We are going home." "But Admiral," protested Bae Sujin, "these are humanitarian crises. Children are dying because they do not have access to human medical knowledge. Wars are starting because they do not have human mediators. Should we not help?" Song Ji-woo looked out at the stars. They had spent 3 centuries helping aliens, and in return, they had been voted out of their own galaxy. Now the aliens wanted them back, but only as servants, only as hired help, not as equals, not as partners. "The aliens made their choice," she said quietly. "Now they must live with the consequences. We are not their servants anymore. We are not their hired help. We are going home to build our own future." The great exodus continued. Human ships streaming back toward Earth carrying 12 billion people who had once called the galaxy home. Behind them they left a civilization that was already beginning to crack without the glue that had held it together for 300 years, but none of the humans looked back. They had work to do. The first real war started over a simple mistake. 3 months after the humans left, the Tritanian Empire received a bill for quantum crystals that seemed too high. The crystals were used to power their space stations, and without them millions of people would die. The Zendari Consortium, who sold the crystals, insisted the price was correct. In the old days, economists Jang Mi-young would have looked at the numbers within hours. She would have found the computer error that was doubling all the prices. She would have fixed it with a few keystrokes, and both sides would have laughed about the misunderstanding over dinner, but Jang Mi-young was gone. She was on a transport ship heading back to Earth. Her alien friends had voted her out of the galaxy. Now the Tritanians and Zendari were building war fleets instead of checking their math. Emperor Zekvior of the Tritanian Empire was not a bad leader. He had worked with humans for 40 years. He trusted their judgment, but without human advisors, he fell back on old Tritanian ways. When someone cheats you, said the old ways, you fight them. The Zendari were equally confused. Their consortium leader Melkari had relied on human trade experts to handle complex negotiations. Now she was trying to manage interstellar commerce with software that had not been updated in 50 years. Every calculation seemed wrong, but she did not know how to fix it. The war began with a single shot. A Tritanian patrol ship encountered a Zendari freighter. Near the disputed trade route, the Tritanian captain demanded to search the cargo for evidence of price manipulation. The Zendari captain refused. Both sides had been trained by humans to de-escalate such situations, but their human trainers were gone, so they started shooting. The battle lasted 6 hours and killed 300 beings. When it was over, both ships were destroyed and the trade route was closed. The news spread across the galaxy. Within days, 2 major powers were at war over a billing error on the research station Prometheus. 7. The alien scientists were having their own crisis. Dr. Choi Yun-hee had been working on experiments that seemed impossible, advanced mathematics that opened doorways to other dimensions, technology that could create matter from pure energy. Her alien colleagues had watched her work for years. They had taken notes, they had asked questions, but they had never truly understood the theories behind her research. Now, with her gone, their experiments or failing one by one. D'Arvel Nache, Zephyrion physicist, tried to recreate one of Choi Yun-hee's experiments. The goal was to create a small amount of antimatter for use in medical scanners. Instead, he created a reaction that ate through 3 levels of the space station before burning itself out. 50 researchers died, and the station had to be evacuated. The aquatic spheres tried to continue their deep space exploration program without human navigators. Captain Lee Sora had mapped the dangerous regions around black holes and neutron stars. She had created safe paths through space storms and gravitational anomalies. Her maps were classified human military secrets. Without those maps, the spheres lost 2 exploration ships in the first month. One vanished into a spatial rift that Lee Sora had marked as extremely dangerous. The other was torn apart by gravitational forces in a region she had labeled as safe only for specially shielded vessels. Back in human space, things were very different. Free from the constant demands of galactic politics, human scientists were making breakthroughs at an incredible rate. Dr. Kwon Jae-hyun had been working on faster-than-light communication for 20 years. The project had been put on hold repeatedly because he was always being called away to solve alien problems. Now, with uninterrupted time, he achieved something that had seemed impossible: direct quantum communication across unlimited distances, without relay stations, without networks, without any infrastructure at all, just pure science connecting minds across the void. Captain Lee Dong-min took advantage of the new communication system to explore regions that had been considered too dangerous. His ships could stay in constant contact with Earth. Even from the edge of the galaxy, they discovered new types of stars, planets with impossible physics, alien ruins from civilizations that had died out billions of years ago. The humans were not hiding from the galaxy, they were growing. Beyond it, Admiral Song Ji-woo established trade routes with species that had never heard of the Galactic Council, beings from other spiral arms of the galaxy, civilizations that had been isolated for millions of years, strange creatures that lived in the space between stars. These new alien friends were amazed by human technology, not the weapons or the ships, but the social sciences, the art of making different species work together, the ability to prevent wars through talking instead of fighting, the skill of creating fair agreements that all sides could accept. We have watched your species for some time, said Ambassador Kethmo of the Distant Wanderers. His people were energy beings who traveled between galaxies. You are unique in your ability to create harmony from chaos. We would like to learn from you. This was different from the old days. The Galactic Council species had seen humans as junior partners, useful servants who could handle problems that others could not solve, but these new aliens saw humans as teachers, as equals, as valuable partners. Meanwhile, the galaxy that had expelled humanity was tearing itself apart. The Tritanian-Zindari War had triggered a cascade of smaller conflicts. Old trade agreements fell apart without human lawyers to interpret them. Defense pacts became meaningless without human military advisors to coordinate them. The Menthari collective split into warring factions when they could not agree on how to divide resources without human mediators. The Thermal Alliance began fighting among themselves over who should lead now that their human-trained generals were gone. The Zephyrian Republic declared martial law after riots broke out over food shortages caused by failed trade negotiations. The Galactic Council, building the remaining delegates, tried to maintain order, but every session ended in chaos. The Vortani delegate who had led the vote to expel humanity now found himself trying to mediate disputes, using techniques he had learned from watching humans for decades, but he lacked their patience, their insight, their ability to find solutions that satisfied everyone. Council member Keltar the Vortani, who had served with Captain Park Min-soo, sent a secret message to Earth. It was brief and desperate. "We made a mistake," he transmitted. "Please come back. We need youth." Response came from Ambassador Kim Tae-ho, who was now serving as Earth's foreign minister. The message was even briefer. "The Council expelled humanity from galactic affairs. We are respecting your decision, but this is different," protested Keltar in his next message. "This is an emergency. The galaxy is falling apart." Kim Tae-ho reply was cold. "We know, we warned you this would happen. You chose not to listen. Now you must solve your own problems across human space." Other former galactic council members were sending similar messages, begging for help, offering massive payments, promising anything if the humans would just come back, but the answer was always the same. Humanity had moved on. The galaxy had taught them a valuable lesson about depending on others for acceptance. Now they were building something new, something better, something that did not require them to beg for the right to help the first. Cracks in galactic civilization were becoming chasms, and the humans were no longer there to build bridges across them. The Manthari-Zephyrian War began over 3 asteroids floating in empty space. The asteroids contained rare metals needed for starship construction. Both species claimed the same mining rights. Both had legal documents that seemed to support their claims. In the past, human lawyers would have examined the contracts, found the overlapping clauses, and created a sharing agreement within days. Instead, both sides sent battle fleets. Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian Defense Force had trained under Captain Park Min-soo for 15 years. She knew human military tactics, the art of precision strikes that disabled enemy ships without killing their crews, the science of psychological warfare that convinced enemies to surrender rather than die, the philosophy of fighting only when all other options were exhausted. But Park Min-soo was gone back to Earth with the rest of humanity. Veltar found herself commanding ships designed for wars that humans had helped them avoid for 3 centuries. Her weapons were too powerful, her soldiers too eager, her options too limited. The Battle of Kepler 442 lasted 6 months. Both sides threw everything they had at each other. The Manthari used biological weapons that turned enemy crews into living trees. The Zephyrians responded with sonic bombs that shattered Manthari crystalline structures. The asteroids they were fighting over were vaporized in the first week, but neither side would admit defeat. When the war finally ended, 4 million beings were dead. The Zephyrian Republic had lost half its fleet. The Manthari collective had been split into dozens of smaller groups that would probably fight each other next. The disputed mining rights belonged to no one because there was nothing left to mine. Similar wars erupted across the galaxy. The Ice Moon Federation attempted to renegotiate their ancient peace treaty with the Thermal Alliance using protocols that were 800 years old. The misunderstandings were immediate and catastrophic. The Thermal Alliance interpreted a trade proposal as a declaration of war. The Ice Moon Federation thought a diplomatic gift was a military threat. The resulting conflict consumed 17 star systems. Both sides used weapons they barely understood. Technology reverse-engineered from human designs. But without the safety systems or ethical constraints that humans had built in, entire planets were rendered uninhabitable. Solar systems were left empty except for radiation and debris. The aquatic Spheres tried to establish new trade relationships with the Outer Rim species. Without human anthropologists to explain cultural differences, every negotiation became an insult. Every business deal became a blood feud. Dr. Park Soo-young had spent 40 years documenting the social customs of hundreds of alien species. Her work had prevented thousands of diplomatic incidents. Now her research was classified and stored in human databases. The aliens were left to stumble through cross-cultural contact like children playing with explosives on Earth. President Oh Seung-won received reports of the chaos with growing concern. His cabinet met daily to discuss the deteriorating situation. The Minister of Defense wanted to send military aid. The Minister of Science suggested sharing medical technology to help treat war casualties. The Minister of Foreign Affairs proposed offering sanctuary to refugees, but Ambassador Kim Tae-ho remained firm in his position: no intervention, no aid, no assistance of any kind. We cannot save people who expelled us from their community. He told the cabinet they made their choice. Now they must live with the consequences. Not all humans agreed. Captain Lee Sora had returned to Earth with the rest of the evacuation fleet, but she could not forget her alien friends she had saved. Vortani colonies from asteroid impacts. She had rescued Zephyrian exploration teams from black holes. She had shared meals and stories and dreams with beings from across the galaxy. The news reports from the war zones showed her alien friends dying in conflicts that could have been prevented. Her former crewmate Keltar was reportedly commanding a refugee fleet trying to escape the fighting. Her old engineering partner Velkara was working in overwhelmed hospitals trying to treat casualties with medical equipment she did not fully understand. Lee Sora made a decision that would change everything. She began reaching out to other humans who felt the same way: veterans who had served alongside alien troops, scientists who had worked in mixed research teams, diplomats who had spent their careers building bridges between species. The first meeting was held in secret in Lee Sora apartment in Seoul. 12 people came: Captain Park Min-soo, who had commanded joint defense fleets, Dr. Choi Yun-hee, who had been working on cures for alien diseases, engineer Nam Ho-seok, who had built the Galactic Communication Network, negotiator Yoon Da-yoon, who had prevented dozens of wars. We cannot just watch them destroy themselves, said Lee Sora. These are our friends, our colleagues, our family in some cases. The government has made its position clear, replied Park Min-soo. No intervention. We are officially neutral in galactic affairs. Then we act unofficially, said Dr. Choi Yun-hee. I have medical supplies that could save thousands of lives on Zephyr Prime. The government does not need to know where they went, but if we are caught, protested Yoon Da-yoon, we could be charged with treason. The president has forbidden any contact with the galactic powers. Lee Sora looked around the room at faces she had known for years. These people had dedicated their lives to helping others. Now they were being told to stand by and watch while their former allies died in preventable conflicts. Then we do not get caught, she said simply. The group that would become known as the Silent Watchers began planning their first mission. Engineer Nam Ho-seok quietly provided them with advanced cloaking technology that he had been developing for Earth Defense Forces. Dr. Choi Yun-hee shared her latest research on emergency medical procedures that could be performed with minimal equipment. Captain Park Min-soo offered tactical advice on how to avoid detection by both human and alien forces. His experience commanding joint fleets had taught him the blind spots in various sensor systems. He knew how to move ships through space without being detected by anyone. The first mission was a simple medical run to Zephyr Prime, where a plague was killing thousands of civilians. The Zephyrian government had requested help from Earth, but had been officially refused. The Silent Watchers loaded a small ship with medical supplies and headed into the war zone. They avoided the main battle areas using back routes that Lee Sora had mapped during her exploration years. They slipped past patrol fleets using Nam Ho-seok cloaking technology. They reached Zephyr Prime without being detected by anyone. Air Choi Yun-hee worked for 3 days straight teaching local doctors how to treat the plague. She could not stay longer without risking detection, but she left behind enough medicine and knowledge to save tens of thousands of lives. The Silent Watchers were back on Earth before anyone knew they had left. Word of their success spread through underground networks. Other humans volunteered to join their missions, former soldiers offered their services, former scientists shared their research, former diplomats provided intelligence about trouble spots across the galaxy, but even as the Silent Watchers saved lives, the greater galaxy continued to burn. The wars were spreading faster than they could respond, the weapons were getting more destructive, the casualties more horrific, the refugees more desperate. Earth received a message from an unexpected source. The communication came from outside the galaxy, from a group calling themselves the Andromedans they had been watching the conflict with growing concern. They wanted to meet with human representatives. The message was brief, but its implications were staggering. We have observed your species for some time. You are unique in your ability to create cooperation from chaos. We wish to learn from you and to offer you something your former allies could not respect. President Osungwan called an emergency session of the Security Council. This was the first contact with beings from outside the galaxy. It could change everything, but even as humanity prepared for this new relationship, the galaxy they had once called home continued its slide into chaos, and in the shadows the Silent Watchers prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. Captain Lee Sora stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the planet New Axiom burn below them. The planet had been caught between two warring fleets for 3 weeks. Neither the Tritanian Empire nor the Zendari Consortium cared about the 3 million civilians trapped on the surface. They were too busy trying to destroy each other. The Silent Watchers had grown from 12 people to 300 in just 6 months. Human volunteers from across Earth had joined their secret missions. Former military officers brought their ships, former scientists brought their knowledge, former diplomats brought their understanding of alien cultures. Lee Sora's ship was one of 12 in the rescue fleet. They were using advanced cloaking technology that engineer Nam Hoseok had designed. The alien fleets above New Axiom could not see them, but time was running out. The orbital bombardment was getting worse. Every hour began evacuation procedures. She ordered. The rescue ships moved like ghosts through the battle zone above them. Tritanian and Zendari warships exchanged fire that lit up the sky like deadly fireworks. Below them, cities burned as stray shots hit the planet's surface. The civilians had been hiding in shelters for weeks, but the shelters were not built to withstand military weapons. Dr. Choi Yun-hee coordinated the medical teams. Her people moved through the evacuation sites, treating wounded civilians and preparing them for transport to safety. She had trained alien doctors in emergency medicine, but most of those doctors were either dead or trapped in the war zones. We have wounded coming in from Sector 7, she reported. Burns from energy weapons, radiation poisoning from damaged power plants, malnutrition from the siege conditions. Lee Sora nodded. Keep working. We have transport ships standing by. The evacuation took 18 hours. The Silent Watchers moved over 2 million civilians to safety on neutral worlds. The operation was flawless. No human ships were detected, no alien forces knew they had been there. When the battle finally ended the next day, both fleets assumed the civilians had been killed in the fighting. News of the mysterious rescues spread through underground channels. Refugee camps buzzed with stories of invisible ships and unknown saviors. Some called them angels, others whispered that the humans had returned but were working in secret. The Galactic Council, what remained of it, tried to investigate but found no evidence. The Silent Watchers had covered their tracks perfectly. They used untraceable communication systems. They landed on worlds that were not monitored. They left no signatures that could identify them as human council. Member Keltar knew the truth. He had served with humans for 20 years. He recognized their tactics, their technology, their unwillingness to abandon people in need. But when he tried to contact Ambassador Kim Tae-ho directly, he received only silence. The official human government maintained its position of complete non-interference. President Oh Seung-hwan continued to refuse all requests for aid. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho ignored all communication from former Galactic Council members. Earth Defense Forces turned away any alien ships that approached their territory. But privately, Kim Tae-ho was proud of his daughter and her volunteers. They were doing what humans had always done, helping others, even when those others had rejected their help. Even when it meant risking their own lives and freedom. The Silent Watchers expanded their operations. They had medical teams treating plague victims on Zephyr Prime. They had engineering crews repairing damaged infrastructure on Mantari worlds. They had negotiation teams secretly mediating disputes between smaller species. Captain Park Min-soo led a mission to rescue prisoners of war from a thermal Alliance detention center. The prisoners were aquatic spheres, civilians who had been captured during a trade dispute that had escalated into violence. The Alliance was threatening to execute them unless their demands were met. The rescue was complicated. The detention center was in the middle of Alliance territory, surrounded by military bases and patrol fleets. But Park Min-soo had studied Alliance tactics for years. He knew their weaknesses, their blind spots, their standard procedures. His team used a combination of advanced stealth technology and misdirection. They created fake sensor readings that made Alliance forces think they were dealing with pirates. They staged diversionary attacks that drew security forces away from the prison. They rescued 400 prisoners without firing a single shot. The Alliance blamed the rescue on terrorist groups. The prisoners were quietly transferred to neutral worlds where they could return to their families. No one suspected human involvement, but the Silent Watchers were just a small group. Their ships numbered in the dozens, their personnel numbered in the hundreds. The galaxy was vast and the conflicts were spreading faster than they could respond. Engineer Nam Ho-seok received a disturbing report from his intelligence network. The Vortani hegemony was developing a new type of weapon based on captured human technology. They were trying to reverse engineer quantum disruptors that had been left behind during the evacuation. The weapon was dangerous beyond imagination. It could destroy entire star systems by destabilizing their quantum structure. But the Vortani did not understand the safety protocols. They were essentially building a bomb that could destroy their own galaxy. This is beyond our capabilities, said Nam Ho-seok at the next Silent Watchers meeting. We need official intervention. We need the Earth government to act, but President Oh Seung-wan refused to budge. Let them deal with their own problems, he said. If they destroy themselves with their own weapons, that is their choice. The situation became more desperate when the Andromedans made contact. Daearkwon Jae-hyun had been monitoring the signals from outside the galaxy for months. The messages were complex mathematical proofs that demonstrated incredible scientific knowledge. The Andromedans were not just advanced, they were incredibly advanced. Their technology made human science look primitive. Their understanding of physics made human theories seem like children games, but they were approaching humanity as equals. Your species has something that we lack, they transmitted. They had learned human languages by studying old broadcasts. Your ability to create cooperation from conflict is unique in our experience. We have watched civilizations rise and fall across multiple galaxies, but none have developed your social sciences. The Andromedans offered an alliance not as master and servant, but as partners. They wanted to learn human methods of diplomacy and cooperation. In return, they offered access to technologies that could revolutionize human civilization. President Oh Seung-wan convened an emergency meeting of the World Council. The implications were staggering. An alliance with beings from another galaxy could make humanity the most powerful species in the universe, but it would also make them responsible for the chaos in their old galaxy. The Andromedans had made it clear they were interested in humanity, specifically because of their ability to prevent conflicts. If humanity allied with them, they would be expected to use that ability. The debate raged for hours. Some council members wanted to accept the alliance and return to galactic affairs as the dominant power. Others wanted to maintain isolation and let the galaxy burn. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho found himself torn between his duty to humanity and his memories of the friends they had left behind. The decision came from an unexpected source. Captain Lee So-ra burst into the council chamber, still wearing her battle armor from a rescue mission. She had just returned from the Outer Rim, where she had witnessed something that changed everything. The Zephyrians are dead, she announced. All of them. The Vortani quantum weapon test went wrong. It destroyed their entire home system. 4 billion people gone in an instant. The council chamber fell silent. The Zephyrians had been one of the founding members of the Galactic Council. They had been among the first to make contact with humanity. Their children had played with human children on joint colony worlds, and now they were extinct because they had tried to use weapons they did not understand. We have to Ak said, Lisora, the galaxy is not just falling apart, it is dying. We can ally with the Andromedans, we can return as the dominant power. We can save what is left, but the question remained, were they returning to save the galaxy or to rule it? The answer would determine the fate of trillions of beings and the future of galactic civilization. The time for hiding in the shadows was over. Humanity would have to choose its destiny. The Andromedan ship appeared in Earth orbit without warning. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Made of materials that seemed to bend light itself and powered by forces that human science could barely comprehend, the ship was larger than any human space station, but it moved with the grace of a living creature. President Oh Chun-wan stood in the diplomatic reception hall of the United Earth government waiting to meet beings from another galaxy. Admiral Song Ji-woo was beside him, along with Ambassador Kim Tae-ho and the top scientists and military officers of Earth. Everyone was nervous. No one knew what to expect. The Andromedan delegation arrived through teleportation technology that left shimmering particles in the air. They looked almost human, but taller and more graceful, with skin that seemed to glow with inner light. Their leader introduced herself as coordinator Ashmiran through a translation device that spoke perfect Korean. We have been watching your species for many centuries, she said. Your development has been remarkable. Not your technology, which is still primitive by our standards, but your social evolution. Your ability to create harmony from diversity, to prevent conflicts through cooperation, to build bridges between incompatible cultures. President Oh Sung-won tried to maintain diplomatic composure, but he was overwhelmed. These beings possessed technology that could destroy or uplift entire civilizations, yet they spoke to humanity as equals, as partners, as teachers. We are honored by your interest, he managed to say. What do you propose? Coordinator Ashmiran gestured toward a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Wars raged on hundreds of world civilizations that had stood for thousands of years, were collapsing. Trade routes that had connected star systems for millennia were abandoned. Refugee fleets wandered through space, seeking sanctuary that did not exist. Your former associates are destroying themselves. She said they expelled you because they feared your influence, but that influence was the only thing holding their civilization together. Without human mediation, human innovation, human compassion, the galaxy is returning to its natural state of chaos. The display zoomed in on specific conflicts. The Vortani hegemony had split into 12 warring factions after their quantum weapon accident. The Manthari collective had devolved into tribal warfare. The surviving Thermal Alliance worlds were fighting over the remaining resources. The aquatic spheres had withdrawn from galactic affairs entirely. 4 billion beings have died in the past year, continued Ashmiran. Most of these deaths could have been prevented with proper mediation, proper planning, proper care for civilian populations. These are skills that only humans seem to possess. Dr. Kwon Jae-hyun stepped forward. We developed these skills out of necessity, he said. Humans are not naturally peaceful. We had to learn cooperation, or we would have destroyed ourselves. That is exactly why you are valuable, replied Ashmiran. Other species achieved peace through genetic engineering or technological control, or simply by eliminating their violent members. Humans chose the harder path. You learn to channel aggression into productivity, to transform competition into cooperation, to make war obsolete through understanding. Admiral Song Ji-woo had been studying the holographic display with growing alarm. The galaxy was worse than their intelligence reports had indicated. Entire sectors were now dead zones where no ships dared to travel. Species that had been allies for centuries were now bitter enemies. What do you want from us? She asked. We want to learn, said Ashmiran simply. In return, we offer partnership. We have technology that can restore destroyed worlds, science that can cure genetic diseases, weapons that can end wars instantly. But we lack your wisdom, your patience, your ability to make others want to cooperate. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho understood the implications. This was not just first contact, this was an offer to become the dominant power in the galaxy. The Andromedans were offering humanity a chance to return, not as expelled refugees, but as the leaders of a new galactic order. But there would be conditions. The Andromedans were not offering charity, they wanted something in return. They wanted to learn human methods of social engineering. They wanted to understand how humanity had achieved what no other species had managed stable multi-species cooperation. The negotiations continued for days. Human scientists worked with Andromedan researchers, sharing knowledge about psychology, sociology, anthropology. The aliens were amazed by human universities where different species learned together, human governments where alien citizens could vote, human military units where former enemies served side by side. We have never seen anything like this, said coordinator Ash Miran. Most species achieve unity by eliminating differences. Humans achieve unity by celebrating them. This is a skill we need to learn, Captain Lee. Sora was called in to brief the Andromedan delegation about the Silent Watchers. Her unauthorized rescue missions had saved hundreds of thousands of lives. The Andromedans were fascinated by the concept of humans risking their own safety to help beings who had rejected them. This demonstrates the principle we wish to understand, said Ash Miran. Why do humans help those who have wronged them? Why do you risk punishment to aid former enemies? This behavior seems irrational, but it produces results that rational behavior cannot achieve. Lee. Sora thought about her alien friends scattered across the galaxy. Some were dead, some were refugees. Some were fighting in wars they did not understand. She thought about Keltar commanding a refugee fleet, Velkara treating wounded soldiers with inadequate medical supplies, her old crewmates who had become family because abandoning them would mean abandoning ourselves. She said finally, we are who we are because we choose to help others even when they do not deserve it, even when they do not appreciate it, even when it costs us everything. The Andromedans fear